Welcome to Philly Tech Connect podcast, where Philly's tech minds meet. CEOs, developers, dreamers. This is your space. Each week, we explore the journeys of tech innovators. Join us and be inspired.
Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Today we're speaking with Bill Evans. Suddenly laid off, Bill chose to push through the market collapse and create a stable and ever-growing software consulting company, Liberty Fox Technologies. Bill thrives on the trials and tribulations presented by developing custom software for his clients and looks forward to any request that challenges his team's abilities and potential. He enjoys a number of hobbies, from being a muscle car enthusiast and a pilot. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate you bringing me in here.
No, it's my pleasure. We were introduced to each other through a mutual acquaintance, Jay, who's a member of the Philly Tech Entrepreneurs community. And I loved your story. I hate to dwell on the negative, but it is always an interesting kind of inflection point to hear about the story of you getting laid off. I was wondering if you could take us back to the time when you got laid off and talk to us a little bit about what you were feeling and the different decisions that were weighing on your mind at the time.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And honestly, for me, it's not a negative conversation because it resulted in a company that's almost 15 years old now. So, back in 2010, I had been working for a startup as originally a consultant for them, and then I came on as their solutions architect. We were building a really cool product over about 3 or 4 years, and eventually they ran out of funding and they weren't able to raise additional capital. We tried to help continue to push the company forward, but then one day the boss came in and was like, "That's it, folks. Sorry." A little bit more elegant, but so I found myself for the first time in my life without a job, and I wasn't super concerned, but I was like, okay, so I filed for unemployment, and at first I was like, cool, I'll take a little breather because I literally had a job since I was 14 years old, so I was working, I was at home, relaxing, but then it didn't take long for me, maybe about 2 weeks or so. But after about 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't watch any more Judge Judy. My refrigerator was clean, and I was kind of done with going to the bar at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and hanging out with the regulars. So I actually was able to log into my old email account from the company that actually went under. They didn't even exist. And there was customers reaching out to me for personal relationships saying, "Hey, you helped us when you worked for the company. I know they went out of business. Can you help me transition to something else?" And so one of those customers is still a relationship I have today. You mentioned being a pilot. We actually own a plane together. He was one of my very first customers and now a personal friend. And so I decided to, take the plunge forward, start Liberty Fox, help these people move off of a now defunct product, and then referral, and off we are to where we are today.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you sort of, despite obviously the company going under, you had the opportunity to then, service some of those customers and sort of gradually get started on a business. Businesses do take time though to grow. I'm sure you know that, 15 years. Was there ever any time during the early days of LFT when you were thinking, boy, maybe this wasn't like this whole like start my business thing wasn't a good idea? Or no, it was just kind of like smooth sailing, you hit the ground running and up and to the right.
I think we always have those moments and challenges where you have to like stop and reflect and think through things. I personally, even with those challenges, I was excited to really kind of drink the Kool-Aid of being an entrepreneur and find a path forward. But I certainly had my challenges. For the first couple years, I actually was just a solopreneur running the company by myself from 2010 to 2012. In very early 2013, I was kind of like, well, I'm just tired of being this guy for contract hire, and I started getting some opportunities to get more than one project at a time. So I decided to say yes to two projects, both full-time projects. And I said to myself, I was like, look, I'm either going to hire somebody and begin to grow this thing, or I'm in my, mid 20s and I can work 80 hours a week for 6 months and just make double my income for 6 months. And it was a good experiment. So that was the plunge I took, and I was able to actually hire into that. But then, it hits you all of a sudden. People's lives depend upon you, their salaries, everything. And, at one point, about 2 years into me really digging into having employees, I had a very large customer representing over 50% of my revenue have something in their industry affect them. They loved us, but their industry caused a major impact that caused them to suspend a project we were working on. And at the time, I only had 4 employees, and now all of a sudden, two of them. So 50% of my workforce at only 4 people suddenly didn't have work. And so that was a moment where you pour the spirit of your choice, stare at the wall and go, well, how do I fix this? Right. So, got through that, and I've had challenges much bigger than that since then. But, just always being able to push through and think through those challenges is where I try to focus.
Do you feel that entrepreneurship was always on your radar? Maybe not as soon as you ended up encountering it, but it was a goal to be kind of had in the future? Or was it really kind of happenstance? This wasn't really something that you were ever considering, but it just kind of fell into it.
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked it just quite that way before. I think maybe it was maybe on the back of my mind, but it wasn't something I was chasing. I think as I was working for this startup company, we had a lot of freedom in how we operated and how we worked, and I kind of grew in my role there probably a little faster than what anywhere else. I kind of got, promoted title wise in dog years, and I knew that going somewhere else might result in me having to take a back step in my role, and I really enjoyed, being a leader, and so I think my desire to continue to lead, which I do think I've always been good at least I think I do. My desire to continue to lead kind of pushed me on the path of entrepreneurship because I enjoy being an influencer and a leader.
You're obviously in the tech industry, you're helping developing custom software. This is a field that just changes like on the daily, it feels like, and more so even recently with evolving trends, AI, machine learning, things like that. What sort of, I guess, trends have you noticed over the years, and how do you, as a company, stay up to date with them and able to really tackle them?
That's a really great question, and that's where we pride ourselves in being a software consultancy as opposed to a software development shop. I really like to come to our customers knowing what's out there in the industry, kind of being the hub and spoke of, I know what other vendors are out there. I know the products that are out there. I can't say I know absolutely everything, but perfect example, I go to 4 conferences a year. I literally just got back from Las Vegas yesterday from a large healthcare conference to understand what are the products that are out there. We have a lot of healthcare customers, and what are the products out there? What are the trends in healthcare? What are people pushing for? What are people, anti a little bit? And getting out there and getting the pulse of what's happening is really important to how we go out and talk to our customers. So, in the healthcare space, for example, and everywhere right now, but it was very intense in healthcare spaces, AI and generative AI. But, I think it's just as important to know where AI is bad, where as to where it's good. And the only way you can do that is really getting closer to it. And that's kind of what my goals were.
You mentioned going out, speaking with clients, getting a sense of the pulse. You also referenced having a client that, maybe one of your original first ones where you own a plane together. This is obviously taking client relations to, the highest level of having this shared hobby and asset. Tell us a little bit about how you've managed to create long-lasting relationships with clients.
Also a great question. I really just I always say, like, we're not your vendor, we're your partner. I care about my customers' long-term goals. Internally with my staff, I tell them, if you cannot tell me what success means to your customer, you shouldn't be working on any tickets to build features for their software. And I always tell them success is not project completed on time and on budget. Sure, that is success, but that's not. What does success mean impactfully to their business? Like, what are we producing something that's going to build a better ROI for them? Is it a better workflow for them? Is it going to allow them to continue a growth path that they're working on with their board? Like, we need to know what that means to them. And so because I carry that mentality and I kind of push it through my team, I've built, some friendships to transcend business with quite a few of my vendors, partners, customers, et cetera.
I know that LFT, as you mentioned, is, software consultancy. You sort of referenced the fact that you don't do development. You also alluded to the fact that it's important for the client to know what success means for their customer. So, software consultancy has a general sense to it, but there's some obvious constraints that you try to bucket it into. At a high level, how do you kind of define the scope of what you guys do? What is sort of included in it, and what are the things that you try not to take part in?
Sure, sure. And to clarify, we do software development. We just don't refer to ourselves as a dev shop, because what I say the biggest difference between us and a regular dev shop is a dev shop's going to come in and say, "What's your project? Let me build it." We're coming in, "What's your problem? Let me solve it." Right? And so everybody's heard that old adage of the triangle of people, process, and technology. There's a lot of consultants out there that focus on the people and process. We focus on the process and technology. So we're not going to come in and recommend that you restructure your organization or that you don't need this role or maybe you're heavy in this department. We're not looking at payroll structures, anything like that. We're looking at your workflow and where you might be creating unnecessary bottlenecks because you're trying to solve problems with people and process that really should be solved with process and technology. Like you're really creating workflow steps to work around technology problems that could be resolved and remove those workflow steps. So it's not uncommon for a customer to have 12 or 14 steps in a particular process that really could be 4 or 5, but they're stuck working around the software, and then we come in to support them in that.
Nice. Love efficiency, love making companies more efficient. Sounds like a great space to be in. Anything upcoming for Liberty Fox Technologies to be aware of? And just in general, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. So actually a little bit in the rearview mirrors, but one more year in advance. We do our yearly charity fundraiser that we do in September. And next year being our 15th year in business, we're really excited about that. So even though it's 11 months out, we're trying to make it the best one we've ever done. We do it every year. And this year was actually a really great one. So we're very excited about that. And again, mentioning our continued path into the healthcare consulting space. So although we do support a variety of industries, we're really excited to continue that path down the healthcare support. As far as staying in touch with us, our website is libertyfoxtech.com. Liberty like the Liberty Bell, Fox like the animal, tech spelled TECH. And I'm simply just Bill at. Be happy to talk to anybody about how we can support them.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Great time talking to you. I really appreciate it.
That's all for today's episode of Philly Tech Connect. Join our community at phillytechentrepreneurs.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, shortlist.io, a digital marketing agency specializing in top-notch link building, content strategy, and web design. Stay innovative, Philly, and see you next time on Philly Tech Connect.